Hey guys, Don Hill, Tampa Bay Real Producers, coming at you with another episode of our weekly podcast. We are fired up to have Lindsay Hernandez here today with us, who we're going to introduce and dive into her story in just a minute. But as you guys know, this is the podcast made for real producers, interviewing real producers, created by real producers for people who want to be real producers. And we're excited to have Lindsay here today. Lindsay was actually featured as a rising star in our March issue just recently, as you can see here. Check that out at TampaBayRealProducers.com. You'll be able to upload the entire issue there. But Lindsay, good to have you here today. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm great.
It's really our pleasure. Excited to dive into your story, and I'm glad we just got a chance to meet really for the first time. And I've been a fan watching what you've been doing here as a rising star in our market now for a while.
Thank you.
For people who don't yet know you, let's just kind of start a little bit with your background.
Sure.
And did you grow up around here? Are you from Tampa Bay initially? What did you do prior to real estate? And when did you get licensed?
Listen, you asked for it, so
yes,
here it comes.
Here it comes. Unleash.
Yes, I grew up on Anna Maria Island.
Okay.
My dad grew up there, so we were, second generation.
Fairly local then.
Yeah, fairly local. I went to USF. I got a degree in education, and I was a special education specialist for the school district of Hillsborough County for almost 20 years. Cool. Loved it. It was fulfilling. It's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't stumble into education because something else didn't work for me. Yeah. It was all I ever really wanted to do. And then in 2016, we lost a son. And after he passed, I tried to tiptoe back into life as I knew it. It just didn't work for me. I couldn't really find my footing. They say create your new normal, and that wasn't happening for me. So in 2017, we had our youngest son, Chance. We named him Chance because we got another chance. And after that, there was no way. There was no way I was going to hand him over and be a part. I knew I had to do something different. So my mom has done real estate for a very long time. Okay. So I said, what do you think? So it was in the blood a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. So I asked if I could kind of hitch to her wagon, and she said, okay, go for it. So during night feedings, I'm, taking my classes online and making the most of my awake time. I got licensed, and that's all she wrote. I have not looked back since. That's good.
So that was 2018, I think you said?
That was 2018.
Okay. Does your mom have a team?
Yeah, it's me.
You're the team.
Yeah,
got it. Okay. Yeah. So is she still in real estate today?
She is. Awesome. She does her own thing for investments and that sort of thing. So I am truly, kind of out there on my own.
Very cool. Yeah. So you got licensed in 2018, and now is that with the same brokerage you're with today?
Correct.
It is.
Yep.
And that brokerage, again, remind me,
it's Property Holdings Realty Group. That's
Property
our family.
Holdings Realty Group. Mm-hmm. Was that started by your mom?
It was.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So a true family business.
Yeah.
And now it's you and her that are really building that brokerage. It's just you individually as an individual agent. I don't think you're in the process of building a team yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome.
Although after meeting some pretty amazing agents in the area, I'm not opposed to it. Right. I just think I've been so busy to start, honestly. So maybe for the future, that'll be something we'll do.
It's a powerful story. I think a lot of times it's those moments of sometimes tragedy, sometimes just I say the moment of decision that your life can be altered and changed. I think there's a lot of truth behind that. And so I'm imagining as a teacher, the tragedy you had to go through with your son, was it just something about the school environment that was hard for you to deal with after that, seeing kids reminding you of your son? Or
That's a really great question. So I'll tell you, the first day back to work after my maternity leave and bereavement leave, I walked back into my office, and the calendar was on the day that I ran out to have him. Everything was left the way that I saw it last. And it was just so overwhelming.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so I struggled to find a balance to kind of grieve and serve in such a huge capacity. I was the supervisor in my particular school for special education. So that is just very all-encompassing. All of your emotions, all of everything you got, you pour into it if you're doing it right. And so it was a lot. And I did it for a year. I came back and did it for a year, tried to navigate my way through, like I said, the new normal I was told I would have. And then Chance came along, and he just offered such a different perspective. I just felt like I needed to be closer to home in that season, and be with him, because now I know how fragile I was given the wisdom of knowing how truly precious time is and how fragile life can be. And I wasn't willing to forego that time with him. So, but I have always worked. I feel strongly about supplementing for our family and providing in some way. So I wanted to find a way to make money and continue to serve my community and the people and families of my community in a way I always had, but in a way I could throw Chance on the back and go out. So here we go. So for the first year, he was on my back in a little baby Bjorn or whatever it was, and we went to showings. And
I was about to ask that, so I would imagine, so you started, it sounds like, on a part-time type of a schedule where you were balancing being a mom,
I did.
raising Chance, figuring out this whole new business, right? This real estate thing, which is, we know the facts are, even people who commit to this full-time, it doesn't catch right away. So for some agents, it takes them many years to just kind of figure out how to do it the right way and what that's going to look like. Meanwhile, you still had some good success, pretty quickly in the process. There's a reason why we did feature you as a rising star in Tampa Bay Real Producers. I think you mentioned earlier that your best year was over $22 million in volume, over 50, over 40 transactions, over 60 transactions that you had that year. So
it was my third year.
That was your third year in business. So still being a mom, working, raising Chance, and of course you have other children I know as well. So have you found that real estate was able to fulfill what you were looking for in terms of that flexibility and what it has evolved to be for you? Speak a little bit on that.
Wholeheartedly. So one of the biggest things that I had to overcome was that fear of something new. I was very comfortable in my career in education. I mean, I had retirement planned out. I was very happy where I was. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was established and knowledgeable. And anytime you step into something new, you're vulnerable again, right? You're the little fish again, and you have to kind of figure it out and make your way. And I just allowed, my faith to be bigger than that. And where there's a will, there's a way. And so off I went. And it's funny because I always believe in just being affirmed. And, I just find that those things come. Affirmation comes when you're open to it. So one of the first showings that I ever had was with a mother who was moving to Florida from out of state, and she arrived. Now I'm still a little nervous, and I have all my paperwork, and I want to do all the things the right way. And I could just tell she was off. I didn't know if she pulled up and the house wasn't what she expected or something. And she just said, "I'm so sorry. I just came from a meeting. My son is a student with special needs, and they just gave me this IEP, and I don't understand what it is because it's a Florida IEP." And there in that driveway, my two worlds collided, and I was affirmed
you were like the perfect realtor for her, huh?
That I was where I was meant to be, and that I could still serve in the way that I was afraid I might not be able to.
That's awesome.
And it was incredible. So it was
I know that you're a woman of faith, so there's obviously a direction there of God had a plan that you might not have seen, right, at first.
For sure.
It's cool to see how that came together, and really in that one moment it became obvious.
Because I needed to see it in a way that made sense to me.
Yeah.
And it
awesome.
fell right in my lap. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What would you say are, now that you've been in it for a few years and you're still learning, I'm sure, a ton in the business and growing your brand and just growing your knowledge about how to, be what you want to be in the real estate game. What would you say is the most rewarding part, though, of being an agent in general, being a realtor, being in the real estate business compared to what you used to do? What have you found about it specifically that's the most rewarding?
For me, It's service. That's my love language. And I have always been that way, and growing relationships and being able to provide a service that will help truly impact the lives and well-being of families and individuals. I mean, when you lay down at night after a hard day of work in that way, that's it. I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you know you're really adding value.
Yeah.
Have you found that the relationships that you've had from your clients, is that sustained itself and continued to?
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a people collector. It gets weird for people who are not, huggers like I am, or, they're a little guarded at first, but I just really appreciate the relationships and the opportunity to connect with people that teach me things and grow me as a person. And I apply that to all of the transactions that I have, and I grow these relationships with these families and people. And I mean, it has changed me for the better. And of course, expanded my business exponentially, because then come referrals and all the other things. So,
yeah, on the flip side of that, I think one of the things that we all tend to learn from is our failures and our challenges, and how that helps shape us, right, into whatever we are destined to be in whatever space that might be. But it's interesting because when you started, really worked with your mom, you said, and you worked together in a brokerage that is a boutique brokerage, not having that background of a Keller Williams and their training programs, or Remax and what they bring to the table, and Century 21 and all these big names, right? So as a new agent learning the business, I'm sure that might have, or maybe you even had some doubts at some point, or maybe not, because you trusted your mom, and your mom was probably there for you throughout that process. But can you speak a little bit to why I guess that worked for you, rather than looking and working with some of these bigger brands right from the beginning, right? And what that brought to you that you think was a benefit for you. But also, if you can pinpoint any challenges that also brought to the table that you had to deal with and learn from, because I'm sure there's a little bit of both. And there might be some people who see this who are even newer in this business and kind of contemplating, maybe I should switch brokerages. Maybe I should go to a Keller Williams, or maybe I should stick with a boutique one, or like, what has been your experience and how that has benefited you, or, like I said, some of the challenges that arose from that? Yeah.
So I hear the twofold question. For me, the benefit was the autonomy, having the flexibility to make my schedule. Now, again, I don't know what I don't know, so I haven't worked for any other brokerage, so I don't know what their requirements look like. But from what I've heard, I don't have to do desk duty. I don't have to do open houses. I don't have to do some of those things. I do not attend mandatory Monday morning meetings, things like that, right?
Well, you do with Chance, I'm sure.
For sure. He is the colleague of all colleagues. But so it gives me a little extra flexibility. I heard you in previous podcasts talk about the benefits of a mentorship. I did not have that. I mean, I have support, but I did not have, mentor after mentor to kind of guide me.
Right.
I've collected my own mentors over time through other brokers and agents that I've met and befriended. But I think the benefit for my life right now is the flexibility of being able to make my own schedule and that sort of thing. And kind of take on the clients that I'd like to say I'm able to choose to work with. But I say that with the caveat that I've never not worked with anyone that's called me yet. So I've never turned anyone down. The struggle with it,
I would say, because you love people and you found a way to love them all.
I do. And there's always a way to help somebody. And if I'm not the one helping them, then in my mind, it's not going to get done right. So then I can't rest. But the struggle with that is that when I am in the heat of a transaction or juggling many, I don't have a team to call on.
Yeah.
There's no one that can do the inspection for me. There's no one that can open the door for me. It's all me. And I found that I've had to really prioritize my time very well so that I can get it all done and execute it well. Not just execute it in general, but execute it well so that at the end of the day, when the keys are handed over, they're pleased with the entire process and my performance.
Yeah.
So it gets a little tiring. I will say that I did not sleep much in 2021. Yeah.
Just because of the amount of deals that you were working on and all of it being so new. And you mentioned 2021, you were a couple of years in by that point, but still it was a 60 transactions, a lot for one person.
It was a lot. Yeah. So it was, the post-pandemic, right? And the heat of all of this crazy Tampa Bay market.
Right. The goat was here. It was
all of it. And everybody was coming. And so, I guess every agent kind of feels that sense of you want to take every call, right? Because you're not sure when the next one's going to come. So I did. And I worked very, very hard. So,
what role did your mom play in helping you in those earlier years and getting traction and getting the business up and running? Was she that mentor role, would you say, for a while, only there when was she more kind of hands off, and if you needed her, you would go to her?
That's right. Got it. So I'm a very I want to do it myself. I want to learn on my own. I want to take all the classes. I want to ask all the people, and if I need you, I'll call you.
Got it.
And so she really gave me that space. She was always available, mainly for the therapy that is required to do this job. So she was my sounding board for a lot of, big feelings that come along with it, but she's kind of whatever I need her to be on any given day, and also my mom, and also grandma, and all, all
it's funny, we just recorded another episode last week with Melanie Atkinson, if you might know her. She's with Smith & Associates in South Tampa, and her background was in psychology, right? Yeah. And so you just mentioned that. We were talking about the importance of being a great agent is really, in many ways, being a psychologist at the same time, because you deal with so many different personalities and different styles of buyers and sellers, and that's a big part of it, is just knowing how to really calm somebody down who's extremely emotional or eccentric, and also sometimes really just learning how to connect and adapt to the people that you're dealing with. So for you, excuse me, Lindsay, what has been, you would say, your most important success habits or secrets or tricks that you think has helped you grow the business as quickly as you have? What's worked, best for you to get out there and make something happen? Can you think about anything specific that you feel like has moved the needle for you?
Yeah, I think consistency and diligence. My whole mission is personalized service and diligent care. I mean, without diligence, you've got nothing. You have to have a diligent work ethic. You have to be diligent in growing the relationships and the trust. So that has really benefited me. Of course, time management, right? You're never going to get to the closing table if you're unorganized or you don't prioritize well, that sort of thing. So
time blocking is a good habit to have.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think that I like to take this little nugget of wisdom from my husband. He's also in the people business, being a principal, and he likes to approach.
So your family is not completely removed from education.
No,
still got that going on.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. But we talk about it a lot. We assess situations with the idea that is it will or is it skill?
Yep.
And going back to what you said about big emotions and psychology and all of that, I find that, if I have a client who has big feelings and they're carrying a backpack full of emotions, we got to figure out, are we moving forward? And if we're not, is it will or skill? And if we can assess the will and get everybody's feelings worked out, then we can apply the skill. But
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's the approach that I take throughout. And again, working well with others. I know, like, that is basic preschool sandbox 101, but play well with others. I have heard from so many other agents that say, gosh, you really make this like a team thing. Well, we're not closing the deal without one another. So of course I'll go to your inspection, or of course I'll meet your buyer. Whatever we need to do to help the group as a whole, I'll do. And I found that, I haven't yet had a transaction with another agent where I didn't hear from the broker and get offered a job. So I do have a couple standing open options.
That's impressive.
So it does, again, going back to affirmations, it does make me feel like I am doing this well. I am doing it right. And
absolutely.
Well,
you bring up a great point, because I think, if you're an agent out there, right, and you find yourself complaining a lot, right, about other agents on the other side of the transaction, or complaining about your buyers or your sellers or who's around you, or the deal fell apart, or the deal, shouldn't have fallen apart, but you can't figure out why, or you're blaming. There's a lot of blame going on in your business. If you give yourself an honest evaluation, let's be real. There's a reason why, there's well over 20,000 people in the Tampa Bay market who are licensed. Only 15,000 last year anyway, at least did one deal, right? So, in my eyes, if you didn't even do one deal, you're probably not an active agent, right? It doesn't really mean you're extremely active if you only had one deal either. But the point is like, if there is some of these types of emotional things that you feel in this business, I think you have to ask yourself the question, is this even the right business, right, for you, number one? Because it's really impossible to succeed in real estate if you're not, embracing what you just said, that emotional approach to realizing that it's your job. It's what you're getting paid to do, is to get people to the closing table and realize that there's going to be emotional challenges along the way, because for most people, this is the biggest investment that they're going to make in their entire life, right? And when people sell a home that they've lived in for many years, there's a lot of memories and emotion that are tied into that side of the transaction. And then, of course, on the buyer side, it's very similar in terms of the size of that purchase for a buyer. So I think you have to go into it with your eyes wide open, which it sounds like you do. But I do, thankfully, I get to spend a lot of time with real producers, and I know they think like you just think, and like you just said, and they are very aligned with that. But I also know there's a lot of agents out there who don't think that way, right?
Correct.
Who think differently. And, some of you, I hope, if that's where you find yourself, can learn something from what Lindsay just said. And hopefully we can work, and maybe one day interview you on our podcast, because you made some adjustments and changes. But if not, maybe it's time to find something else that works better, because you're not going to succeed if you can't embrace that.
No, completely. I'm a raging empath, and I find that and
that's an interesting way to put it.
Listen, I am, and I tell you, I pour out, and my well gets dry sometimes. But I come to every client, whether we know each other or not, whether we have history or not, or it's an initial consultation, and I personally attach myself to whatever their story happens to be. And I have been so blessed to exactly like you said, sell the home that's been in the family for generations. I sold one recently in Carrollwood, and I was the listing agent, and I could see in this huge oak tree a rope that was way at the top that had grown up with the tree from when the gentleman who was selling it used to swing on it when he grew up in the house, if that makes sense. Things like that. Family who have also lost children, I can clearly relate to that. And that home is the last place you ever held your child. So I know that by handing the keys over and closing the door, you're leaving that space that holds so much for you. So it's things like that. New first-time home buyers, they might not have a tragic history or a lot of, life behind them, but they have hope and a future and excitement and all of that. So it's just what propels me to keep going and push hard. And I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. Yeah,
no, it's awesome. And you could tell when you talk about it, you light up, your eyes glow, and you found something that you were wired for. And it's exciting to see what you've been able to do in a pretty short period of time, really, which is awesome. If you were trying, I know again you're not building a team yet, maybe one day you might, but again, one of the things I think is fascinating about your story is how quickly you were able to get traction and get success. This is, again, why we featured you as a rising star. We do that every month for that reason, because our goal is to try to help agents that are newer at times, emulate the habits of people that have done things well in a short period of time. So if you had to kind of lay out just a couple specific things, you already mentioned time blocking, and maybe there's not anything else to add, and that's fine. We can move on if so. But I was curious, if you were to help a new person to try to replicate your success, is there anything else you would point out that you think is important for them to do in their first year to get on the right path, right? To be able to succeed as quickly as you were able to. Does anything else come to mind?
I think be open-minded and be flexible. And I think don't be so hard on ourselves. If it doesn't feel like it's all happening, it doesn't mean that it won't. If it's meant for you, I believe nothing can stop it. Right? So I truly believe that if you keep applying that faith over fear and keep approaching every day with courage, it will come. And I also believe in the power of denial, because I think when a door closes, it's for our protection. So if we're not getting certain deals, or if we're not feeling like we have things going on, it's okay. It's okay as long as you're putting forth the effort every day. And back to, pre-licensing classes, that sphere of influence, right? Your circle of trust, your whatever. I started with serving a fellow colleague from my teaching days.
Makes sense.
And she's wonderful, word of mouth and things. So apply yourself there. But I have found that as a new agent, you get a lot of advice. Go to all the PTA meetings, go all the country club events, go to all the things and spread yourself far and wide. Well, then you don't even have time to serve anybody well. So hone in on what makes you happy and comfortable, because you will thrive from that. If you're spread too thin, you're not going to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be successful.
That's a great tip. I think the power of your network is a great way for many people to start.
Right.
But I do think, like you just said, there are many agents who don't know exactly what one niche that they want to focus on is.
Right.
And then they just end up trying to do too many things too quickly, and they don't get traction in any direction.
Right. And the only message you get from that
all
is,
you get is frustration.
It's not working.
Exactly.
Right. I'm failing.
Yeah.
And that's
a great way to look at it. So I think that power of focus, there's so many great books out there about that. And I think what you just mentioned makes a lot of sense for sure. Let's talk a little bit more about you for people who don't really know you at all, just to kind of flush out more about who Lindsay Hernandez actually is.
Okay.
So you're married. We mentioned you're married. You've been married how long?
13 years this October.
13 years.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank
and you
you
guys have how many children together?
So we have 3 boys together,
Okay.
2 living, but I always like to include Christian.
Of course.
Because he's up in heaven. So
Yeah.
we still have him. But we have Bowen, who is 10. And then Christian, who would have just turned 7. And then Chance, who is 5.
And what do you guys love to do for fun? What's the Hernandez family get
Listen,
fired
we
up
have
about?
a wanderlust like none other. So we love to travel. We love spontaneity. I mean, we'll wake up on a long weekend and just hit it. Pack a bag and no reservation, land in usually Charleston, because that's our...
Oh, I love Charleston.
We got married there. We
That's
got
awesome.
engaged there.
Nice.
So we just...
Is your husband from here too?
He's from Pinellas County. So
Okay.
he's a product of Pinellas County Schools
go.
also.
2 local yokels. How about that?
Yeah. So we love food. That is, if it's not tied down, it's for us.
There you
so
go.
we love trying new restaurants and, just exposing our kids to those kinds of things.
We took our family to Charleston for the first time just a couple years ago.
You did.
And my wife fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. Our kids loved it. So we've gone a couple times now. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago was the first time we went, and we've gone probably 3 times since.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's a cool town.
That's what happened for us. So we went when we were newly dating. It was one holiday season for us together. We said, let's take a trip. So we closed our eyes, pointed to a map, and said, wherever we point to is where we're going to go. So we landed in Savannah. It was great. And then we had a couple extra days, and we're like, well, what's close? So, dear Google, what's close to Savannah? So we ended up in Charleston, and that was it. We went back every 6 months since.
Yep.
We found out about, Bowen there. I went to get down on some shrimp and grits and couldn't. And I'm like, what is wrong? So I learned that I was going to be a mother there, got engaged there, got married there.
That's exciting.
I marched myself into
Have you done the Fort Sumter thing?
Oh, for sure. Listen, we've done it all, but we now
That's
go
a cool experience
grow.
too.
Yeah, it's awesome. I did meet a local broker there, and I told her.
By the way, there is a Charleston Real Producers.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, I know the guy who runs it very well. He's a great dude.
You will have to connect me, because I said to my husband, when you retire, we're moving there, and she's going to hire me, and that's how it's going to be. And I'm going to sell these amazing Charleston homes.
Yeah, I've thought about buying some property up there myself. I think it's a great spot just to have another property in.
I would be happy to sell it to you.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. Absolutely. We could definitely talk about that one day when the timing is right. But yeah, my friend's name is Ryan Jones. He does what I do up there and does a great job. They have a great event culture, and it's a cool market.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Very fun.
So we always ask some like rapid fire questions of personal favorites, right? You already mentioned your love of food.
For sure.
So what is your favorite food?
Shrimp and grits.
Shrimp and grits.
Yeah.
So that's the Southern gal in you, huh? How about that? Yeah. Very cool. Favorite movie?
Oh, gosh. Maybe, I don't know.
Nothing comes to mind.
I mean, a lot. How cliche if I say The Notebook, really? Because maybe it is.
Well, I mean, just be honest. That's all. I mean, it's okay. No one's going to judge you here. This is a judge-free zone.
I'm like a hopeless romantic, and it's amazing.
That makes sense.
And it was filmed in Charleston, so
that
there's another. Yep, there we go. Yeah,
I'm sure your husband loves it as well.
He does. He'll die if I tell you he cries every time, but he will.
Do you have a favorite book or maybe author or seminar, anything that you feel like has really made an impact on your mindset as a business owner?
Yeah.
Which I have a follow-up question to the business owner point, but what comes to mind there?
So I have been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, yours included, so thank you for being a motivation. But yeah, I think... there's just so many. I listen to Hoda Kotb a lot. I listen to, of course, professional podcasts, but you can only absorb so much before you just want to, you're drowning yourself in shop talk. But anything that's really motivational right now. I do follow a lot of faith-based podcasts because I feel like that's where I really refill my cup sometimes. You know, in the service industry and the people, just working with people in general, you pour out and pour out and pour out. So
absolutely.
That's the season I'm in right now is...
Yeah, I think that servant leader mentality is something you kind of have to be able to give your best, right?
Yeah.
I was curious too, because have you ever owned a business before prior to this?
No, I have not. We do have a foundation, though, that we established in memory of our son. And so that outside of education, that's the only thing that I've really, truly started from scratch on my own.
Got it. So what's the name of the foundation?
Christian Michael Hernandez Foundation is his name.
Now, was it, I don't know how much you want to get into it, but
no,
was it a disease that he passed away from? Was it an accident?
Yeah, no, he was born with some medical anomalies that were not visible in ultrasound. Okay. So he gave us a run for our money from the beginning. He was just all over the place with the be cautiously optimistic, and then yay, everything's great, and then no, it's not. So there was it was a roller coaster ride, but not for anything that we thought would be fatal. Yeah. It was all things that we were potentially planning for. You know, I have a history of preterm labor. Bowen came at 34 weeks, so we were trying to get past that hump, and man, we made it. I hit 34 weeks, and I thought we were home free. I hadn't had any more negative visits from the doctor, and I thought that was it. He was going to be great. When we didn't know he was a he. We never find out. Okay. It's always jelly bean until they're born. Huh? Yeah, until they're born. So we hit 34 weeks, and I told my husband, I said, meet me at the hospital. This is it. I know now. Because the first time Bowen came, and I had not delivered ever, so I didn't know. Right. And they're like, you should go now. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go home and shave. Sorry if that's inappropriate, and I did that. But the second time, I now realize you want to listen to what they say, and you want to go straight there. So we did, and everything was fun, right? We're getting ready to have this baby we worked so hard to have. We prayed for him so hard, and it was a celebration until they said, we're going to go ahead and do a C-section. Heart rate's a little wonky, and let's go ahead and have a C-section. Great. I get to meet my kid. Yeah. And it went south pretty quickly after that. He was delivered, and the NICU team was there simply because of the gestational age. Like, he was only 34 weeks also. Yeah. And I mean, the air in the room, you could tell. Wow. And no one was saying anything, and he hadn't made a sound. And so, I'm strapped to this table and I'm watching Mike watch them work on him, and still no one's saying anything. And then this nurse comes over and she says, "Do you want him baptized?" And I had been so medicated. I was like, what does that mean? Of course, we're going to do that. We have a plan for that.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Right.
And so it clicked for Mike first that he was not going to live. So ultimately what happened is his trachea did not connect to his lungs. And that was something they did not see in ultrasound. So it was a complete and total shock for all of us. And when our sweet friend, Dr. Ferry, she was the NICU doctor at the time. We love her. She's our hero. She did everything right.
Yeah.
She was trying to intubate him, and it just stopped. It was kind of scarred off at the bottom. It just didn't connect. Wow. So he just wasn't able to get air. And so they brought him over and put him on my chest, and just, he went from my arms to Jesus' arms. And
you're going to make me cry over here,
that's the
Lindsay.
only life he knew. It was perfect. But I'll tell you, I knew in that moment, and I know that this is not about real estate, but I knew in that moment I had one opportunity.
Real estate is life, so this is about life.
You are correct. I had one opportunity to take advantage of that environment, and I told everybody in that room that, my God does not make mistakes. And I will continue to believe, even in my darkest hour. And I'm telling you, the anesthesiologist who came to his funeral said that she was now a believer because of what. Yeah, so he was not an accident.
Testimony.
Yeah. Oh, his little life was mighty, and he had a purpose, and he continues to have one through our foundation. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think there's always a curiosity as to how that would happen, especially for parents.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the emotion in the room, right, at that time, because I know, as you know, we have 5 kids. Yeah. And when the baby is born, that's the first thing you're looking for is, are they crying? Are they okay? And that's those
and it
signs.
is surreal when it happens to you, and yours is the baby who doesn't make a sound. Yeah. But I will say, it's given me such an opportunity. Real estate has given me such an opportunity to kind of pour back. And sometimes I have clients who will take a portion of their proceeds from their sale and offer a donation somewhere in his memory. Or what I have been able to do is offer a donation or an act of service to a charity of my client's choice as part of their closing gift.
I love that.
So it's all wonderful.
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that, again, God used it for good and created something special out of it.
Yep.
Last question I always love to ask, and you might have just touched on the answer to this, but I think sometimes it's easy to just go through the motions of being in real estate, and every transaction is the same, even though every person's different. So I think that's a tricky thing to catch yourself in if you ever find yourself thinking that. Yeah. Is that every person, for them, this could be the first time that they've sold their home or bought their home or whatever, and you have to always put yourself in that person's shoes. Mm-hmm. But, excuse me, with that being said, what would you want, Lindsay, your legacy to be years from now? Within real estate, out of real estate, what do you think is most important to you that you would want to be remembered for in the years to come?
Man, that I made a difference. That is that's making me emotional. That I made a difference, and that someone might forget the address, of the home that I sold to them, but that they will never forget how I made them feel. And that when my time is up, I will hear, "Well done, a good and faithful servant."
Oh, that's a great point right there.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
Well, Lindsay, thank you for, we're going to wrap up here. This was a lot of fun. I didn't know all the details of your story, but this is why we love this podcast, is it gives us a chance to dive in a little bit more and get to know the story, the detailed story behind what we read in the magazine. Again, check out Lindsay's feature as a rising star in our March issue of 2023 for Tampa Bay Real Producers. I'm sure you'll be seeing much more of Lindsay in the months and years to come, not only hopefully attending our events, but just out and about in the real estate community as she grows her business and fulfills her calling. So we thank you, of course, for following us. If you don't already, subscribe on YouTube so you can see and be notified of all of the upcoming episodes yet to come. We drop an episode every Friday, so you'll be able to hear more about who the real producers are in the Tampa Bay market. And that's it. Signing off for now. Check you guys later.